Hello, and welcome to another exciting episode of the Little Bit Different podcast with your host, Cory Sterling. I hope everyone is doing well wherever you are in the world listening to this. It's such a treat and so exciting for me to take some time and record this for you. I am currently in a beach town called Ixtapa in Mexico. I'm in the state of Guerrero, and it's pretty amazing, as you can see behind me, or maybe you can hear the waves behind me. It's just a little bit of a magical paradise, which I thought this is sort of the perfect environment to record another episode of the podcast. I have been in Mexico now for just over a month, and as I mentioned in the last episode, it was never my plan to come to Mexico, even though like deep down inside I had this feeling and this intuition always. I was like, I know I'm going to have a bit of a Mexico phase because, like, everyone sort of deserves to have a Mexico phase. And it just happened that my friend Josh invited me to come stay with him in a place called Sayulita. And I said yes, and I changed all of my plans, and I didn't care what anybody else had to say about it. And now I'm here. So I wanted to give a little bit of an update about what my time in Sayulita was, because it was extremely special. And what it highlights for me, what the 3 weeks in Sayulita highlight for me, and I'm going to talk specifically about what happened and what I learned and why it's important, is just there are times in your life when you are in the right place at the right time and you know it. And the way that you know it is because of what's happening in your life and how you feel, and just that sometimes you're in this rhythm where it's just like everything is happening so easy, falling into place perfectly, like this person, that place, new client, amazing idea, all the sorts of things. And Sayulita was really a beautiful chapter for me in that sense, where I followed this intuition. I booked a one-way ticket to Puerto Vallarta to go visit Josh and stay with his family. And then it was just 3 weeks of absolute magic. So I want to talk a little bit about some of the reflections from my time in Sayulita and what I took away from it. And hopefully some of it can be applicable and helpful for you. But just in starting with this umbrella idea of being in the right place at the right time and knowing that it's the right place at the right time based on how it feels, I just want to make an important distinction that it's not like it doesn't, if you're in a place where it's not the right place in the right time, that's okay too, because we're not always going to be in the right place at the right time. And it's not good or bad if we're not in the right place at the right time. Obviously, ideally, when we're in the right place at the right time, we want to stay there for as long as possible. And if I didn't have other obligations, I definitely would have stayed in Sayulita. But that being said, sometimes it happens that you can stay in a place, sometimes you can't. But what was most affirming for me was like, okay, I made this impulsive decision, and now all of these amazing things happened. So to talk a little bit about Sayulita, it's a little beach town in an area called Nayarit in Mexico, the Nayarit Riviera. And there's a couple of small beach towns around it. Just north of it is a town called San Pancho, which is super cool, and I got to spend time there. Just south of it is a town called Buceras. I don't know. I have a Portuguese pronunciation for all of these things. And then there's also a town, Punta Mita, which is really, really cool. And I just met some interesting people who live there. And it's close to Puerto Vallarta. It's on the Pacific Ocean in the state of Jalisco in Mexico. So just so that we're all oriented together. Sayulita for me is a really, really special and important place. It was actually the place where it was the first idea and the first time that I understood that one could live at the beach, right? So I'm a Canadian boy, and I grew up my whole life living in Toronto or Montreal or cities. And then I lived in San Francisco, and I've traveled all over the world and lived in all of these different places. And for some reason, like, it just never occurred to me that you can live at the beach. And before, basically the first time, the only other, I don't know a lot about Mexico. And the only other time that I had been to Mexico was in 2015 or 2014. So almost 10 years ago. And at the time I was working at Denton's, the big law firm in downtown Vancouver, wearing my suit and tie. And I remember that I had 5 vacation days for my year as an articling student with that law firm. And I took a vacation. I had a friend. I have a friend. Her name is Melanie Samuels, also known as FGM, which stands for Fairy Godmother. She's best friends with my cousin Stephanie. and Stephanie's like my second mom, who I love the most. And FGM was always like, Cory, you have to go to Sayulita, you have to go to Sayulita, you have to go to Sayulita. This is when I was living in Vancouver. And I remember I had like a 3-day vacation, or there was like, it was a long weekend, like Monday was off. So I booked on the Friday and had 4 days to go. And I loved it. I was like, oh my God, I'm at the beach. And I remember like I was just chilling. I was like, hey, I'm not doing much. I'm just going to chill at the beach. But when I was in Sayulita 10 years ago, I met a woman who was working at the art gallery there, and I like wandered in, and now Sayulita's grown a lot. Like 10 years ago, it was way different than how it is now. The same way, you know, Caraiva's grown a lot, and all of these beautiful hidden beach towns grow in their own ways, which is wonderful and part of the natural progression. But I met this woman who was working at the art gallery, a Mexican woman, and we were just talking, and I was like, oh, cool, where are you from? What's going on? And at this point, I'm wearing a suit and tie, completely miserable, don't enjoy any of my professional work. And if you were to ask me at that time about my career, I would say that the word I would probably use for myself would be hopeless. I'd be like, okay, like I could probably get a job somewhere at some law firm and earn a bunch of money, you know, live this sort of city life downtown and be part of the grind and watch sunset from the view from my office. But at that point, I didn't know what was possible. Everything was still very close for me. And I needed someone to sort of show me the way or show me what could be possible, which this woman, and I forget her name, it was so long ago, but she and I were chatting. She's like, yeah, you know what? I lived in Guadalajara, which is I think it's the second or third biggest city in Mexico. I lived in Guadalajara, and I was just like commuting to and from work and had no quality of life. And I was just like, screw it, I'm going to live at the beach. And I remember being like, I was like, I was slowly computing. I was like, okay, commuting and not enjoying your work, and then went to live at the beach. And I was like, oh, what's it like living at the beach? She's like, well, it's pretty amazing. And what I do is I wake up, I go swimming, I'll surf, I come, I work at this shop at the art gallery for a couple of hours every day. And then I go to the beach, I watch the sunset, I hang out with my friends, we go listen to live music, we eat delicious food. And then I wake up and do it the next day. And I was just, I was like, that's interesting. And that was the first time I remember so clearly. She had a really cool house, like with, it was like you had to take a spiral staircase, and it was really high up, and there's a beautiful view, and that's where she lived. And I just remember being like, this is your life. Like, life can be like this. And that for me, before, it's so crazy to talk about it now with all that I've done everywhere I've been and what I've built. But at the time, that was the first person that was like, that showed me like, oh, like, you know, you don't have to live in a city. You can go live at the beach, and, you know, maybe you'll have less money, but, you know, you'll like what you do. You'll have a really relaxed lifestyle. You'll be in nature. You'll be around amazing people. And so for that reason, Sayulita, thank you, FGM, Sayulita was a really important place for me. And I actually totally forgot that I had gone there and I had this experience until like, and I knew that my friend Josh, you know, he and I worked together and we're colleagues and we're buddies. And when he told me Sayulita, I was like, oh, I've been there. But like when I always remembered, I was like, I remember being there, but I didn't remember that specific incident. So it was really, really, really special for me to go to Sayulita and to stay with Josh and his family and spend a couple of weeks there, because when I was like my first day there, I was like, oh my God, I remember all of this. So it was a really nice full circle moment for me. And that was cool. Like I felt sort of, you know, proud about what I've built and how I've done it. One of the big intentions of me going to Sayulita and living with Josh and his family was to see a different version or a different way of how things can be done for this online digital nomad sort of works. Josh has an amazing wife whose name is Jenna, and 3 kids, Arjuna, who's 14, Lux, who's 8, and Falcon, also known as Falconcita, and she's 3 years old. And they let me live in their house and crash with them. And a little bit about Josh, before he moved to Sayulita, what Josh did was him and his family lived in a van. They had an Earth Roamer van, and they drove around North America in the van and lived in the van. And I remember like when I first met him, that's what he was doing. And I was like, this is crazy, dude. That's crazy that you and your family are living in a van, and like they love it. That's what they were about. And I was always so drawn to that. And then they moved, they went all around and they, decided, hey, what do we like? How do we want to live? Where do we want to be? What sort of environment? All those sorts of things. And they ended up choosing Sayulita as the place where they wanted to stay. And so they were there for a bit, then they built a beautiful home, and now they're living there. But for me, what I wanted to see is like, I know very, very well what the single version of being a digital nomad is like and traveling around the world. So I know what it's like to be single. I know what it's like to run an online business and pick up and go here and go there and do all of the things. And I wanted to see what the family version of it is like. And it's so funny, like now that I'm saying this out loud, I realize like, I didn't know what was possible. And I went to Sayulita and I saw what was possible. And then on the family side of being an online worker or digital nomad or whatever you want to call it, I didn't know what having a family was like. But then in Sayulita, I learned again and I was shown again. And so I really went. So much of the reason I went is because like I love Josh and he's my brother and he's such an intelligent entrepreneur and he's such an awesome guy that I was like, hey, no brainer. If he's inviting me to come live with him, I'm going to go. But then also I was like, and then I can sort of see what family life as a digital nomad is like. And it was awesome. It was, I have such a big smile as I say it because I feel like I was really brought into their family and I got to understand a little bit more about what it looks like to run an online business and have a family and be living in an awesome foreign country or in a beach town at the same time. And I think some of the things that were really drawn to me that were really cool is like how unique of an experience it is for his kids to be going to an international school and having international friends and like going to, Arjuna's 14 and he plays basketball and he plays soccer and he's friends with all these Mexican kids and all of these other international students who are in Sayulita and at the school there. And I was like, what an awesome environment for kids to be brought up in. It's different than how I was raised of being in Toronto, all of my friends being, for the most part, being Canadian and playing hockey and all that sort of stuff and going to summer camp, which I love. But it was just such a different way that you realize like, oh, not only are these things different for me, but they're really different for my children. I also saw for Josh and Jenna, like how cool their lifestyle is. Like they're living at the beach and they're raising a family. And in the way that they're doing it, it's just like, they have a swimming pool with a hot tub and the weather's amazing. And, it's like, I guess for me, maybe it's from where I come from that those things are different, that I'd never really automatically thought about those things, but you just see how comfortable a lifestyle you can have. Also, like by virtue of living in a country like Mexico, where the cost of living is significantly lower, you have a lot of help. So they have an amazing woman who helps with their family. And, when they go for date night, there's someone who takes care of them. And if they want to take, when I got there, they were just coming back from a boat trip and they were gone for 4 days. And it was really easy for them to have someone who is part of their family and helps take care of their children. And like, I'm just seeing all of these things and I'm taking my mental notes. I'm like, yes, the nanny's a big piece. The hot tub and the pool is a big piece, and just like relaxed style of living, right? It's a small beach town. There's no traffic. You're not spending time in traffic in what you're doing. Josh built a really, really beautiful office that I got to work from for a couple of weeks, and I got to crash there as well. And it was just super inspiring just to see what's possible, right? Like, oh, this is what family life can look like when you have a company that you can run from anywhere. And then also it's like the contrast of what Josh used to have before also resonates more for me. And I mean, I didn't get to live in the van, so I missed out on that opportunity. I think that would make 6 of us in the van, which probably would be quite busy. And I don't think I could have made it 3 weeks living with them. But it just, all of it was so nice and so inspiring. And then also just being around 3, really 2 young kids. Arjuna's sort of like a mini adult, but just being around 2 young kids and understanding what that's like and yeah, being part of the excitement and the energy related to that. And also just like I fell in love with his kids when I left. They gave me such a nice hug when I left, and we shared so many moments together. Sayulita, I think it's worth sharing, like, if we're talking about doing things a little bit differently, and obviously on the Little Bit Different podcast, Like, this is an example of someone who has a really successful business that's a super dialed in entrepreneur and has a different lifestyle and has done it a couple of different ways, whether it's living in a van and going around North America. And they would tell me stories, like they would tell me stories about being in Utah or in Death Valley and being under the stars and all the amazing things that they saw and all the places that they went. And even with Mexico, like I think they traveled around Mexico for like a year before they decided what it is that they wanted. So it's a different lifestyle. It was super cool. I felt so grateful to observe it and be part of it. And I loved all of that. Another thing that was really interesting about Sayulita and in hearing them speak about why they love it so much, and this is what's really cool about Sayulita. Sayulita has a little bit of everything. And it has a little bit of everything, and then you can sort of choose what it is that you want to do and how you want to do it. I spoke a little bit about my time in Bali and what Bali was like in the sense that, it was my first time being around like-minded entrepreneurs, feeling really comfortable myself being a digital nomad. Now I've sort of embraced this term. I just say that I work online. In Bali, it was sort of the first time that I saw that lifestyle. I didn't see any of the family side, which is fine. But I was like, oh, I'm a lunatic who's on my laptop on a Saturday at a coffee shop, and there's all these other people who are doing this as well as like-minded people who do it. But what I saw in Sayulita from everywhere I've been in the world, I saw the most balanced version of it, in the sense that, like, I'm going to list out the different things that Sayulita has and why I was drawn to it and why I was like, oh, this is really what an amazing destination for someone who wants to work online is, and raise a family, what it is and could be. So firstly, you have Mexican food. Enough said. I don't need to say anything about Mexican food that you don't already know, but it's unbelievably delicious. Like, it's crazy. It's absolutely insane. Secondly, there's Mexican culture. So there's live music. There's obviously a lot of Mexican people who are there. You can speak Spanish the whole time that you're there if you want. A lot of them come from Guadalajara. I found everyone to be super friendly and open and awesome and engaging. So it was really cool. Like, so firstly, you're in a different country. You're in a Latino country. You've got the food, you've got the music, you've got the dance, you've got a little bit of the feeling, which is really, really great. The weather's unbelievable. Like, sunsets. I went every day to the beach and I would just sit and watch the sunset and read my book. It reminded me of how much I love a simple lifestyle and how really the most basic things in life can make us feel the best. But also there's like a really cool expat community. So there's a school for the kids with, lots of kids from different countries. But in addition to the expat community, there's a lot of entrepreneurs who are doing super cool things. So hanging out with Josh and meeting all of his friends, everyone has an online business and everyone is crushing it in their own way and is up to big things and is has their own niche that they're working. And the types of conversations and the things that I spoke about with the people who I met in Sayulita were amazing. And what was also really cool for me is, like, I even met some new clients while I was there. And I was just like chilling, doing my thing, being obnoxious, being really loud on a call, either with a team member or a sales call. And like a woman came up to me after, she's like, I need help exactly with the thing that you're doing. And I was like, oh, cool. Well, step into the office, right? Let's do this and let's chat. And now I'm able to help this person. And, it's a big scope of project. There's a lot of different things that she wants done. And she never was working with a lawyer who didn't understand anything about the business and didn't set up anything properly for her. And I was just like, oh, cool. Like-minded people, awesome environment, entrepreneurial spirit. Sayulita has it all. And in addition to that, like with Josh and Jenna, I saw like their family crews. So this is what I'm learning about parents is like they hang out with other parents and then their kids play at the same time. Yes, like maybe this is a rudimentary lesson, but I'm learning as I go along. Sayulita to me was really just the total package. And in that sense, like such an amazing place where, from Sayulita, if you want to travel, you can be anywhere in a really short period of time. The nature's amazing. The food's amazing. The people, are amazing. And the entrepreneurial scene is amazing too. And I can say, I've spent some time in Brazil the last couple of years. From the places where I've been in Brazil, it hasn't had that entrepreneurial scene present. And I accept that about the place. And also part of me like sort of loves not having it. Like I also love being in a place where when you're getting together with people, you're not talking about business and no one cares about what you do. Here, there was a bit more of like talking about it and what you do. And I thought it was great. And then lastly, there's like basketball games and there's surfing and there's free diving. And it was awesome. So I just want to share about that too, because as I continue to go around the world and look for different places and things that I love, I was super impressed by Sayulita. One random like travel reflection that I just love and I have to talk about because it means so much to me. And the reason why it means so much to me is because it's really connected to creation. So my favorite song right now is called Creation Rebel by The Burning Spear, man. Yeah, respect every time The Burning Spear. You want some more? I saw Burning Spear in Tel Aviv with my buddy Yonch, and it was the best concert. And there was like one song that when he was playing it, I was like, my God, what is this song? And then I found it, and it's called Creation Rebel. And, you know, if you're listening to this, you know me. You know I love deliberate creation. You know I love law of attraction. You know I love manifestation. And the coolest experience that I love about traveling, like this is my favorite thing. My favorite thing is like showing up to a place and having no idea what's going on. So I showed up to Sayulita. It was a Sunday. Sunday in Latino countries, always like the beach is the busiest. Everything's packed. I went straight to the main beach because I'd been in Canada for 2.5 weeks or 3 weeks. And I was just like, okay, I just need to be at the beach. And it was packed. And I was like, is this really Sayulita? Like, is this what Sayulita is about? And I remember being like, whoa, like, I don't know. It's so busy. There's so many people. And I remember just wandering around and not feeling really comfortable in Sayulita. And then maybe that was on a Sunday. And then that Friday, me, Josh, and Jenna went out. No, it was a Wednesday. Yeah, it was Wednesday. We went out on a Wednesday. And I remember like at that point, by the Wednesday, I felt so comfortable in the place. I felt so amazing in the place. And I was just like, I remember looking back at something and being like, yeah, like my first day I was at that store. And I remember how I felt in that first day. Like I was confused. I didn't know what was going on. I didn't understand how the vibe of the place worked. But like only after 3 or 4 days, I caught the rhythm. I figured out how Sayulita works and I loved it and I love it. And there's something it's so, I don't know, maybe it's so instantaneously validating. It's just like, oh, like I had no idea what's going on. And like, now I know what's going on. And now I feel great here. And remember when I was there and I had no idea how this worked. And now I'm like crushing it and having the best time and making all these friends and seeing the sunset and all of that stuff. And I think like the really like the big juicy one for me was my friend Evan, my best friend Evan, goes to the area often with his family. And he's like, Cory, you got to go to San Pancho. So I was like, okay, cool. I'm looking at Airbnb. It's like $200 a night for an Airbnb. I'm like, okay, cool. Like, you know, maybe I'll do it, or I could just stay with Josh and his family or whatever. And I made a friend who was house sitting at this crazy house in San Pancho. And the last 2 nights that I stayed there, I crashed at my friend's place in San Pancho, and it was like this crazy mansion on a cliff. My bedroom was like just the ocean right in front of me, watching the sunset, watching the sunrise. And I remember just thinking like, whoa, like this is crazy. Like when I showed up, I was in a long sleeve shirt. You know, I don't like long sleeve shirts. I was in a long sleeve shirt and I, you know, didn't know where to go. And I was so confused about everything and I didn't feel comfortable. And then at the, like my last day, like, look at what I created in 2.5 weeks, 3 weeks. Like I just created this amazing experience. And that's what I love about life. Like you show up somewhere, you're brand new, you don't know anything. And then you figure it out. It's sort of like a game to figure out how to travel in each place. And then at the end, you know, I was just like getting a ride to the bus station to take a bus to Guadalajara. And I was just super like stoked, like, wow, thank you, universe, for giving this to me. The last thing that I want to talk about in Sayulita, and then I'll sort of just summarize a little bit about what this episode's been about. And this is something that's really cool for me. So Josh lives down a road that's maybe it's like a 25-minute walk in nature from his house to the centro of Sayulita or the beach in Sayulita. And they have a golf cart and they're like, hey, Cory, like take the golf cart. I was like, no, I love walking. I love walking. And when I was walking every day, I would pass a horse stable. And those of you who don't know, I love horses. When I was a young kid, I went to a sleepover summer camp and they had horse activities there. And I would like wake up at 6 in the morning and clean the stalls and feed the horses. And I'm just like, horses are my spirit animal. That's all that I need to say about it. And it was so lovely. Every day I would buy carrots or apples or grapes or cucumbers and I would feed the horses. And I built this amazing connection with them. And every single day that I saw the horses, the best part of my day was seeing the horses. Like, I think in life, if we can figure that out, what is the one thing that lights me up the most? What is the thing that makes me feel the best? And how can I do more of that? I noticed that feeding the horses was always the best part of the day. And by the end of my trip, I was going to feed the horses 4 times. Like my last night in Sayulita, I got out of bed at 1:30 in the morning with a bag of carrots, and I just went and I whistled and I called them, and I was under the moon and I was feeding the horses, and it's just like I just see God when I see horses, so it means so much to me. But it was a really, really important connection for me. And at the same time, Josh had his 40th birthday party with all of his friends. And it was so cool, like meeting friends who I hadn't met during my time there so far. And the one thing that I got from everyone is like how much they loved Sayulita and how much they loved having a home in Sayulita. And there was one guy, I forget his name, he was so awesome though, just like happy dude, surfer dude, yo bro, he's a surfer. And he's just like, and I wasn't like, hey man, tell me about your life. But we were just talking and he said, you know what, I love having a home in Sayulita, because everyone, Josh would tell people, oh, this is Cory. He travels around. He lives in different places. And I think for most of the people I met in Sayulita, everyone's like, oh, that's cool. But like, I love my life and my base here. And this guy, it was so beautiful. He was just like, you know what, man, I've been in Sayulita for 10 years and I haven't really left. And I have a golf cart and I zip around in my golf cart and I love it. And my son's here and he and I get to surf together. And it was just like simple, happy, and that was really, really inspiring for me. And one thing that I took from that night and the conversations that I had when I was in Sayulita there was I had like a calling to go back to Brazil, to go to Caraíva. Caraíva is sort of the first place that I traveled that I stopped, that I was like, okay, cool, like I'm gonna stop here. I'm stopping here for a while. I love this beach town. I love these people. I love my friends. I love this nature. I love this lifestyle. I love everything about it. And I've been out of Caraíva, I don't even know how long it's been, I think 3 years or so. And when I heard him talking, I was like, yes, I'm going to go back. So that was really, really exciting. And also, there's a lot of farmland in Caraíva as well, around Caraíva, in a place called Jambrero. And I was just like, I'm going to find some horses and I'm going to chill with horses and have a relationship with them in Brazil. So it's so cool. I accept an invitation from my friend on a one-way ticket. And in doing so, it leads to all of these other things. And that lights me up about life. And I love living life in that particular way. And in addition to that, it's just like, I just want to keep living impulsively. That's how I want to go. Like, oh, go to this place, have these experiences, meet these people, have this conversation. And then from there be like, oh, and then after having these conversations, then these people told me this, and this is what I was inspired to, and this is what I thought about, and these can be some of my next steps. So really, really exciting for me. Thank you for taking the time to listen to this. I hope, I'm trying to bring you along in my backpack on the trip to Sayulita and share some really important and lovely reflections. So sort of just as a summary for this episode, I was talking a little bit about coming full circle and that first experience of someone showing me what's possible by living in Sayulita and just, going from city to beach. And then with Josh and his family, who I love, going from, single entrepreneur to family entrepreneur. And what does that look like? And what are the nuances of it? Sayulita is a place that sort of has it all. And you just have to choose where you want to spend your time and where you want to focus your energy on. But it's one of the most comprehensive and full places that I've been that I loved. This exciting, amazing feeling of showing up at a place and then leaving and realizing what you created all along in that. And then my chance chilling with horses and inspiration to, take the next step and figure out what that looks like for me. So thank you for listening to me. And I hope you had fun. And remember, whatever you do, stay different. Peace.